A paramedic refused to leave for 6 hours, then a ranger whispered, "She trained me in Fallujah." The ambulance doors slammed shut, but the paramedic refused to climb inside. 6 long hours had already passed beneath the unforgiving afternoon sun, and while everyone else had given up hope, she remained kneeling beside a silent soldier lying on the cracked mountain highway. The sheriff called it obsession. The emergency physician quietly suggested exhaustion. Yet something deep inside her refused to let go, as if the echoes of a forgotten battlefield were whispering that this story was not over. If stories about hope, compassion, and second chances inspire you, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. The emergency unfolded just after noon along a narrow stretch of road cutting through the pine-covered foothills outside Colorado Springs. Summer sunlight poured through the trees, casting shifting patterns across the damaged pickup truck that had rolled into a shallow ravine. Firefighters had stabilized the wreckage. Police officers redirected traffic while helicopters circled briefly overhead before leaving. Most of the victims had already been transported to nearby hospitals. Only one remained. His pulse was barely detectable. His breathing came in scattered, uneven gasps that seemed determined to disappear forever. The paramedic, Mara Ellison, was 42 years old and carried herself with the quiet discipline of someone who had survived far more than ordinary life could explain. Before joining civilian emergency services, she had spent years serving as a combat medic in some of the harshest war zones imaginable. She rarely spoke about those years. The medals stayed hidden inside a wooden box beneath her bed. The nightmares remained locked behind calm smiles offered to strangers during every emergency call. To her co-workers she appeared dependable, almost impossible to rattle, but beneath that composed exterior lived memories stained with dust, smoke, impossible choices, and faces she had never managed to forget. As the afternoon heat intensified, everyone around Mara became increasingly frustrated. Procedures had been followed. Specialists had arrived and left. Supervisors urged her to rotate off the scene, reminding her that fatigue endangered everyone. Yet every medical instinct she possessed argued against leaving. The unconscious man displayed tiny responses that most people overlooked. A slight tightening of one hand. A barely noticeable shift in breathing whenever distant helicopter blades echoed through the valley. His body seemed trapped somewhere between survival and surrender. The man carried no identification beyond a damaged military bracelet that listed only his blood type and a faded unit number. His clothes suggested an ordinary construction worker returning home from another shift. Nothing about him explained the powerful feeling that refused to loosen its grip on Mara's heart. Each passing hour peeled away another layer of her emotional armor. Watching him struggle reminded her of another young soldier years earlier who had begged her not to leave him alone after an explosion shattered an entire convoy overseas. She had promised to stay with him until help arrived. Help had arrived too late. That promise haunted every difficult rescue afterward. She had sworn that if another life ever balanced on the edge while she still possessed even the smallest chance to help, she would never walk away simply because time had become inconvenient. The daylight slowly shifted toward late afternoon. Golden sunlight filtered through tall pines while long shadows stretched across the rescue vehicles parked beside the road. Curious travelers stopped briefly before continuing on. Reporters arrived hoping for dramatic footage but found only an exhausted paramedic silently monitoring a patient everyone assumed would soon be declared beyond saving. Cameras eventually packed away. The spectacle disappeared. Still Mara remained. Her own hands trembled from dehydration. Sweat soaked through her uniform despite repeated offers to rest inside an air-conditioned ambulance. Every few minutes she carefully adjusted the cooling blanket surrounding the injured man while continuously checking his airway and vital signs. The world around her grew strangely quiet, almost suspended outside normal time. Then, nearly 6 hours after the accident, another vehicle approached from the opposite direction. It belonged to the National Park Service. A ranger stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, carrying the relaxed posture of someone accustomed to difficult terrain. His name tag read Elias Mercer. He had merely intended to assist with traffic control after receiving a request from local authorities. As Elias glanced toward the patient, something changed instantly. His confident expression vanished. His breathing caught. He removed his hat almost instinctively and walked closer with hesitant steps, staring first at the injured man and then at Mara. Recognition spread across his face like a memory fighting through years of silence. No one expected what happened next. Elias leaned close to the attending physician and spoke only a few quiet words. "She trained me in Fallujah." The sentence traveled through the gathered responders almost like a shockwave. For the first time that entire afternoon, every pair of eyes turned toward Mara. Few people had known anything about her military history. She had intentionally hidden it, believing that heroism belonged to those who never returned, not to survivors like herself. Yet Elias remembered everything. More than 15 years earlier, he had been an inexperienced 19-year-old recruit terrified during his first deployment. Mara had trained him to treat catastrophic injuries under impossible conditions. More importantly, she had taught frightened young soldiers that preserving hope could save lives just as surely as medicine. Elias remembered her repeating one lesson over and over. Never abandon someone whose body is still fighting, because sometimes the heart keeps listening long after the world believes it's finished. That lesson had saved his own squad countless times. Standing beside the roadside rescue, Elias realized Mara was following the exact same principle she had taught an entire generation of combat medics. The physician suddenly reviewed every observation she had documented throughout those 6 hours. Tiny neurological responses they had dismissed now formed a different picture. Additional imaging equipment was requested. Specialists returned. New interventions began immediately. Within 30 minutes, the injured man displayed measurable improvement. An internal injury hidden beneath layers of swelling had been overlooked during the initial assessments. The delay in abandoning treatment, and Mara's relentless insistence that subtle changes still mattered, had preserved enough stability for surgeons waiting at the trauma center to perform emergency procedures immediately upon arrival. Days later, the mystery surrounding the patient finally unraveled. His name was Nolan Pierce, a 36-year-old father raising 2 daughters after losing his wife to cancer 3 years earlier. He had spent every spare hour working construction to keep his family together while quietly volunteering weekends repairing homes for disabled veterans. He had never met Mara before that day. Yet because she refused to surrender hope, his daughters would not become orphans. News of the rescue quietly spread through emergency service circles, but Mara declined interviews. She insisted countless responders deserved equal recognition every single day. Recognition had never motivated her. Keeping promises had. Before the story ends, we'd